Welcome into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV, your boxing source Monday through Friday. Well, guess what? It's Saturday as well. Post-fight, we'll be at this very desk breaking down everything when it comes to Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov. Huge card out of Los Angeles. We'll be there post-fight. So, the reason for our hard work is, of course, the main event, Terence Crawford, Israil Madrimov. The question I'm going to put to our guys is, how live are the dogs in this fight? I got a couple dogs with me right now. The champs, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. That is the question, gentlemen. Look at Terence Crawford, the greatest of his era, maybe one of the greatest of all time. Israil Madrimov, comparatively inexperienced. But Paulie, you know what face I'm seeing on people, the experts, I'm asking about this fight? I'm seeing that face like, okay, yeah. Look at the numbers. Big favorite is Terence Crawford, but you kind of get that face about Madrimov.
Crawford is a little bit older, so you never know at that age what version of a fighter is gonna show up, right? You know Crawford at his best. For me, he's #1 pound for pound. He's the best in the world. But at this age, you're also hovering around the age where guys start to get old overnight. You know, so you start to wonder, is Madrimov that guy? I mean, inexperienced as a pro, but tons of amateur experience at international level, at world-class level. And, of course, if you win a world championship this early in your career, after having had that monstrous amateur career, you are a threat to anybody, right? And on top of that, he's physically bigger. I mean, this is Crawford's debut in the light middleweight division. Listen, you can't just throw out Crawford, right? I mean, these are talking points here, you know. We can only judge Crawford by what we've seen from him in the ring. And so far, we haven't seen any version of him that looks sharp. But year to year, you're getting a little older. And like I said, you get into the year where it's a little bit, you get into the age where you start to at least wonder it, right? And like I said, Madrimov is not just a gimme.
Now, so the other side of this, Chris, is, you know about the nutrition, you know about the fitness. When it comes to team sports, right, stick and ball sports, an athlete, a quarterback, whatever, will usually get a season before they go down, right? You'll get a bad season. In boxing, it's off a cliff, right? As you said, it can be one fight and you're off that cliff. The style of Terence Crawford, is it the kind where he's going to age early in your opinion?
Well, the thing about Father Time is he attacks at night. You wake up. That's why I say you get old overnight. Father Time attacks at night. So it's one of those situations where, you don't have that season of decline. And also, the decline in boxing, it's a fast drop-off.
Yes.
It's literally going over the edge. And in terms of his style, Terence has not taken a lot of damage in his career. He also lives like a Spartan outside of the ring. So he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't do drugs, he stays in the gym. He trains with all of the other teammates that he has on his team. He is a physical fitness guy. He's a competitive guy. He likes to do other sports. He stays very, very active. So all of that combined leads to think that, hey, listen, he probably can go a little longer than most, and he already has. You're looking at 36, 37 years old, fighting at the highest level. And yes, a lot of boxing pundits, a lot of boxing experts, a lot of fighters, former fighters, analysts, and whatnot are saying, man, this might be a bridge too far. We're not going to know until fight night. We're not going to know until those first couple rounds are behind us. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen, like the champ said, I haven't seen anything to give me any inclination that he's on the decline. Yes, he hasn't been in the ring in a year, but add in all those other factors that I said, the lack of damage that he's taken throughout his career, the fact that he stays in shape in between fights, the fact that he's so disciplined and so competitive. He beat Eddie Hearn in darts the other day. You see that? You see that?
Yeah, I did.
He got challenged to a dart game. He beats Eddie Hearn.
Super competitive.
He's super competitive, and he finds ways to win. So I don't know if it's going to be different, but Madrimov certainly is a live dog.
I got to play devil's advocate a little bit here because otherwise we have no talk show, right? I mean, we got to, and all these are positives for Crawford. The other side, just playing devil's advocate, Crawford has been off for a while, right? A year.
Almost exactly.
Remember, and this is if he gets beat, all these things are going to start to come up. The Spence win, is it a damaged Spence?
Yeah.
Is it a Spence who was, damaged from the accident and living out badly outside of life? Because if that's a damaged Spence and that win now looks better than what it may have in fact been, and this is just hypothetical, so we're talking here. That means we don't know if Crawford may have already been in decline before because you're beating a damaged Spence, right? And now it's 2 years later, because before that, when did he fight Avanesian?
Yep. Yeah. That was about 7 months prior.
Yeah, so, again, talking points. Also, Champ, you mentioned he lives clean outside of life. And a lot of people say that when a guy's, they live clean outside of life. You live clean, but you're still young for a 36-year-old.
Right.
You typically don't see a 36-year-old, 37-year-old who lives clean that can still match up to a world-class sprinter at 25 years old. Granted, fighting and sprinting are two different things, but no matter how clean a sprinter lives, at 36 years old, the best, cleanest living sprinter still doesn't beat the
Paulie, you're sitting right next to one. I was always known as a guy who lived a very clean lifestyle, great nutrition, stayed in shape between fights. Listen, my 37-year-old body was very different than my 33-year-old body. My 33-year-old body was very different than my 29-year-old body. Age is a real thing.
Yeah. So these are just, again, just hypotheticals. Just to
again, I'm not Terence Crawford.
Obviously. But these are hypotheticals. We don't want to rain on anybody's parade. Just trying to create talking points here to be considered for this amazing fight night we have coming up, because Madrimov is no slouch. Crawford at its best is something that's, amazing. And we'd love to continue to see that. Even again, I'd love to see the best Madrimov against the best Crawford. You know what I mean? The best version of themselves. And I think that the best version of themselves is the best version of Crawford at this age. Can he match the best version of Crawford a few years back? Because a few years back was an unbelievable fighter. Madrimov, we still don't even know how good he is. We just know his resume is unbelievable. From the amateurs, winning this world championship in the pros, physically strong, demanding, he's going to push a pace. I look forward to this fight. I'm curious about a lot of things, and that's why we're really excited about the whole card, about the show, and about Riyadh season being in California.
The questions make a fight interesting for sure, but another question is, how do you make money on this fight? To answer that, he has bad jackets, but he has great picks. That's right, it's J-Rod and the better side.
Well, they say Saturday night is good for fighting, and we're ready to go here on the better side as Riyadh season goes Hollywood. That's right, huge card at BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. That used to be the home of the famed LA Sports Arena. It's now a soccer stadium as we get ready for Bud Crawford against Israil Madrimov as Bud tries to become a 4-division champion as Madrimov defends his super welterweight championship. And if you go to our buddies at sportsbetting.ag, Bud is a monster favorite, minus 1,000, while Madrimov is a live dog, though, plus 600 at 6-1. So as we break it down, what is the better side? Well, listen, we've talked about Crawford, right? 40-0. He was undisputed at 140, undisputed at 147. He's won 11 straight fights by knockout. That's as many fights as Madrimov has had in his career. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage, but he's 36 years old. You just got to wonder if Father Time's going to catch up to Bud Crawford. Listen, the last time a Terence Crawford fight went the distance, we were in the Obama administration, and Madrimov's only gone the distance 3 times in his short professional career. So what is the better side? What about Bud by stoppage? He wins by knockout, TKO, or disqualification in rounds 7 through 9. That's plus 325 over at sportsbetting.ag. And if you're getting that sort of Canelo Bivol vibes that I'm getting from Crawford Madrimov, and you want to sprinkle a little pizza and beer money, how about Madrimov just straight up wins the fight? 6-1, that juice is worth the squeeze. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. It is Isaac Pitbull Cruz taking on Jose Valenzuela for Pitbull's super lightweight championship. It is his first title defense since beating Rolly Romero. Interesting here, remember, we're outside. It's a soccer stadium. It's going to be about 80 degrees when Cruz and Valenzuela get in the ring. 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius. You just got to wonder if that's going to affect them going the distance. Well, over at sportsbetting.ag, Pitbull is the favorite, minus 500, while Valenzuela, also a live dog, at plus 350. Listen, what does Pitbull do well? He comes forward. That's what Valenzuela does. They're not going to have too much trouble finding each other in the ring. Problem is, Rayo Valenzuela has only gone more than 6 rounds twice in his 15-fight pro career. So what is the better side? How about Pitbull by stoppage rounds 4 through 6? That's 4-1 plus 400. But if you feel like you got to get a little pizza and beer money, you can always take the money line on Valenzuela at plus 350. It's going to be a great night of fights. Happy you're along with us. Of course, after it all said and done, you can come to the ProBox TV app and YouTube channel and watch our big fight breakdown. I'm Jim Rodriguez, as always, on the better side.
Well, the jacket was pretty hideous. That is a good sign for J-Rod. But, gentlemen, you see the tail of the tape there. Of course, Isaac Pitbull Cruz on the border, on the cusp maybe of being a Mexican superstar versus Jose Valenzuela. Do you believe, Paulie, Valenzuela is a live dog in this fight? Is it the proverbial puncher's chance for him? What do you think?
You know, I like this fight because Isak is always in the midst of action. He's one of the more exciting fighters in the sport. If you're a boxing fan, you've seen Pitbull Cruz fight. He's always a guy that you'll sit down and you'll enjoy watching. He's always going to push the fight. He can punch. He's in the pocket. He enjoys fighting there. Valenzuela has a bigger frame. He has the ability to possibly be able to, maneuver a little bit because Giovanni Cabrera, we saw, did that against Pitbull in the last fight, in Pitbull's last fight. Here's the thing. I don't know if Valenzuela's mentality is the same as Cabrera. I think Valenzuela, in some ways, I felt like Cabrera was just trying to make Pitbull look bad, and maybe if he happened to win, okay. But if he didn't happen to win, he wasn't going to take any chances. While Valenzuela, for me, edges a little bit more on the side of taking too many chances. So while he has the physical ability to make this difficult, and I think he can in some spots, I think he's going to be in the pocket a little too much and eventually get himself caught. But it's a fight and it's a shootout. For me, in my opinion.
Right, Mexico versus Mexico, always fun, always a lot of pride on the line, as you said, Paulie. A lot of guys, a lot of fights where guys don't step back. If you were looking at Jose Valenzuela in the possible upset, Chris, how do you see it happening?
Well, I mean, you said it, Champ. He's a sharpshooter. He's got legitimate power. He does like to stay in the pocket. He's very good at pulling the trigger, delivering the power that he does have. He's also 5'10". Look at that picture behind me. Yeah. And Pitbull's wearing some shoes there that are giving him some extra inches. He's actually shorter than that. But no, he's asking me how he can win the fight. So he can win the fight by
hypotheticals.
Yeah, right. We're talking about how. So how is to use that height and basically being able to hit Pitbull as he steps over that critical distance line, being able to pull that trigger like I said he has, and deliver the power there because he does have very considerable power. Problem is he's a lightweight coming up. So is Pitbull Cruz, obviously. But is that power going to travel up north the same way? Is it really going to make a difference, the fact that they're fighting at 140? Is that power going to be enough? Pitbull is hard to hit. He's not just a come-forward guy that takes one to give you two or takes two to give you one. He's the kind of guy that he actually moves his head well, keeps his chin down. He's got nice head movement. He closes the distance. He's very good at fighting taller fighters. So that's where it comes into the X's and O's. Is Valenzuela going to be able to maintain that distance, fight at that range that is going to benefit him? Or is he going to stand in front with Pitbull Cruz, which is where you don't want to be, and try to go tit for tat? Either way, I think this fight is going to be very, very fun because Pitbull Cruz is almost always in a fun fight, except for the Cabrera fight. And so is Valenzuela. He's always in fun fights as well.
When you look up at the heavyweight division, one of the things you remember if you're my age, the territory days of pro wrestling, it was loser leaves town. So when you get a wrestler who's leaving the territory, a way out, loser leaves town and they leave. Could that be the situation in the heavyweight division? Andy Ruiz versus a Big Baby Miller. I've heard this talked about as a loser leaves town kind of match in boxing where both guys very, very desperate for a win, if that's the way to say it. I see you smiling, Chris. What are your thoughts on that mentality?
Well, I mean, Andy Ruiz will leave town on his own anyway. the guy fights every 2 years. Sure. He can win the fight and leave town.
He wasn't coming to town. This is just a pit stop on the way out of town.
If you look at his career the last couple of years, I actually did this recently. The guy has had like 4 fights in 5 years. And 2 of those were against Anthony Joshua, one of which he won and became the heavyweight champion of the world, right? So those fights are 6 months apart. Then he doesn't fight for a year. He fights Chris Arreola, which is a very fun fight. Again, another year goes by, he fights Luis Ortiz. Another year goes by, now he's back and fighting Jarrell Miller. So yeah, he might leave town whether he wins or loses. But in terms of winner stays,
marketability,
loser
how much you
goes,
lose, yeah.
I don't think so. This new heavyweight division, thanks to Turki Al-Sheikh, who's actually making these fights happen, guys can lose, a la Jarrell Miller. Right. He lost to Dubois in his last fight, which is actually, in the hindsight, looking better and better because Dubois looks excellent lately. Has the big fight with Anthony Joshua coming up. Jarrell Miller loses. He's back in the ring 6-7 months later. That was never the case in the heavyweight division, especially with guys like Jarrell. In a big fight on a huge card. So I don't think the loser here necessarily gets kicked out of town unless they just really don't show up. And I don't expect either one of these guys to be like that. Jarrell is generally in exciting fights. Even the Dubois fight, didn't let his hands go like he normally does. But he made it 10, 12, 11, 12 rounds as it ever went. And Dubois, again, has been looking very, very good. Andy Ruiz, man. I don't know if he knows how to be in a bad fight unless he's fighting Anthony Joshua who decides to box. Because otherwise, he's in the pocket throwing bombs. And I don't think Jarrell is, well, I know Jarrell's not going to be able to get on his toes and move the way Anthony did. So I believe these guys are actually going to put on a fun fight. And if that's the case, I don't think either one leaves town.
I don't know if you guys caught it when he showed the tail of the tape. Ruiz weighed in about 275 and Big Baby Miller 305. That's almost 600 pounds a man
just
in
shy
the
of
ring.
600.
Right, just shy of 600, but you look at the odds, Andy Ruiz a 3-1 favorite, Paulie. These are big guys, big hitters. Is 3-1 appropriate to you?
You know what, Miller, there's still a lot of question marks about how can he perform, how well will he perform post-drug tests. You know, when he, there's a question mark about how good was he, or was it just the PEDs that were helping him? So I think that's why there's a 3-1 odds here. You know, Andy Ruiz is pretty battle-tested, and people have seen what he can do when he's in shape and when he shows up ready. So you're expecting a ready-to-fight Andy Ruiz against a ready-to-fight Jarrell Miller. But a ready-to-fight Jarrell Miller, you're still curious about it, because all of a sudden, when you realize how many PEDs were found in his system throughout all those wins, you start to question all the wins, because you start to wonder, well, was he doing it before with all the key wins he had? So I think that the reason for the 3-1 odds is because there's still an unsuredness about Jarrell Miller, and we're going to find out, and that's where the loser leaves town thing can come into play here. It's not as cut and dry like the champ said. I mean, it's if how they perform, maybe nobody leaves town, so to speak, right? I mean, they might leave town anyway, as we said, but you're still a viable contender in the heavyweight division.
He's not going to be forced out of town.
But it's not as cut and dry, because these guys have the ability to put on a good fight, and the winner and loser remains in town, so to speak, remains in play in the heavyweight division. So it's a matter of what kind of fight these two guys put on. I think there's a lot of question marks. Ruiz can't stay active. Jarrell stays active, but then fails PED tests. And then when he didn't fail the PED test, coming right back off that, he got, I think it was a stoppage with Dubois, right? It was a late stoppage.
It was a late
stoppage.
stoppage.
So you know, there's a curiosity to this. There's an opportunity for both of these guys to remain viable if they put on a good show. And both of these guys, if you go by their reputations, you know, have typically put on a good show.
And those odds have been changing a little bit this week, and I think a lot of that has to do with, well, two major factors about Jarrell Miller. Number one,
he's a little bit lighter.
He's lighter, and he looks to be in good shape. He's actually V'd out. He looks good. His waist is smaller, shoulders look wider, so he looks the part. He stepped on the scale. He got lighter. I think he was like 330, 340 his last couple fights. You mentioned he was 305.
Still a big guy, right?
Still a gigantic man. And, you know, to speak to the drugs, I've known Jarrell since, I'm talking 20 years now, back from kickboxing days. And I remember him back then. There was no drugs back then. And the guy could fight. He could really fight. So if he shows up and he's in shape, yeah, so people are taking note of that. Number two, he's been talking a lot of trash this week. He's getting a lot of eyes on him.
Jarrell is confident.
Super fast.
He's feeling himself.
He is really, really quick with the trash talk. He's very, very good. He's very, very entertaining. So that's another thing. I think you getting people on your side, the bidding numbers can change. So there's some curious interest in this fight, not only because they're just shy of 600 pounds, but also you got Jarrell Miller who brings the show, and you got Andy Ruiz, who we're curious to see what is left in that show.
This is New York versus LA. This is like legit
cool.
East-West.
It's great. If you look at the odds, they are going to be changing a lot between now and fight time. So a lot of movement in the last couple of days as money comes in. And we announced today by Turkey Al Sheikh, it's a sold-out show. It's done very, very well. The lines will move quite a bit. But, Paulie, before we move on to any other subjects, that idea, a great man once said, the best parts of you came out of a bottle. When someone is tested positive for PEDs and their next performance isn't great, as you said, you start going, that was the reason for all. Is there extra pressure? Because even when you get clean, you're now clean.
Yeah.
If you're not that guy, the best parts of you came out of a bottle.
Certainly you're more under the microscope, you know, and the Dubois loss really created a lot of criticism because he got stopped in that fight after, you know, granted it was late, but he got stopped in that fight and he wasn't as active in the ring throwing punches as he had been in the fights where the suspected PED use was there. So, of course, you're more under the microscope here. But I think Jarrell has, you know, given the effort. He showed up a lot lighter. He's putting in the effort. I got to be honest. In having seen Jarrell in the past, I always wondered how his conditioning was so good because he wasn't the hardest worker in the gym when I had seen him in the times I had noticed him, you know. But I think, you know, there's a bit of a chip on his shoulder now in order to say, you know what, I am good. It wasn't just that failed PED stuff. I can fight. And I think he's out to prove that in this fight. And, of course, Ruiz is, you know, he's got that, you know, Mexican West Coast pride, you know, the La Raza, you know, East versus West Coast battle here. You know, I think the best version of themselves right now in 2024 will show up. You're not going to get a version of these two guys in the ring in 2024 that's like, they could be a little better, but maybe they're not in their prime. Who knows? We'll see. But the best version that exists of them right now, I think, is going to come to the ring because I think they both know how important this fight is.
Talk about a divergence in performance. Coming up, of course, Emmanuel Navarrete, of course, will take on Oscar Valdez in a rematch. And these are two careers that have kind of separated quite a bit since their first fight. Navarrete, of course, losing by upset. He was the boogeyman of this division. We talked about his talent and ability. Looked flat in his last performance, and that has been haunting him. And Valdez has looked great. What you thought about this rematch and how both guys' careers have kind of diverged a little bit, Chris?
Yeah, listen, Valdez has wanted this fight since. Valdez wanted this fight before they fought, and then he fought, obviously, and lost, and he wasn't happy about that. He's a competitor, and he's wanted that fight ever since then, and now he's got it. And it's strange because, obviously, they came together, and they were in their same orbit for many years, both Mexican. We had a Mexican clash when they fought. Navarrete just got over on him all night long. It just looked like he was the better fighter that night. And then since then, Navarrete went up in weight, put on a lackluster performance, and lost to Baranchyk at 135, has now come back down to 130. And then Oscar Valdez goes and he fights Liam Wilson, who gave Navarrete hell a year earlier, and Oscar outclasses him. So now it's like, yes, okay, Navarrete, you have a win over me, bro, but I'm in a better position than you are in terms of our careers. Now they're going to meet again. Oscar Valdez having the opportunity for vengeance, potentially to create a triple fight, a rubber match situation where they can fight again if he does get the win. Either way, it looks like these guys are toward the back end of their career. They've both taken a lot of damage. They're aggressive fighters, Mexican style, and they're in there. But this is a great way to close it. If they are able to make if Valdez is able to get that win and then create a rubber match situation, getting guys can kind of go out making money with each other on the way out and create possibly a great Mexican rivalry.
Paulie, when you look at this, what are the kind of adjustments you'd like to see a fighter make early in a rematch like this? They seem to know one another very, very well. First couple rounds, what kind of adjustments do you want to see Valdez make in this rematch against Navarrete?
I think he's got to get off on the right foot, to get in Navarrete's head where it's like, okay, you're coming off the loss. Let those doubts keep creeping up on you. Also the chip on Valdez's shoulder because he's been wanting this rematch. He's been wanting to get the get back, so to speak. So I think getting off to a fast start, getting off to a good start, and I think that would probably be the plan for Valdez because I think he's been chomping at the bit to get back at Navarrete. Also, we talk about loser leaves town with the heavyweight fight we were just talking about, but I think this is more loser leaves town than that fight. You know what I mean? Because both of these guys, Valdez is sort of resurging, but he can't really afford to get beat right now. While he's resurging. And Navarrete, if he loses two fights in a row, you may be able to go with the third fight if Valdez wins and you get the rubber match. And that would really be the loser leaves town then. But I think there's a lot riding on the line here. There's an opportunity, there's a possibility where this could be a loser leaves town fight. I think Navarrete, having tried the lightweight division, first of all, Baranchyk did us a favor because I was not looking forward to Navarrete, Shakur Stevenson anyway. I thought that was going to be another wash, easy win for Shakur Stevenson. So I think Baranchyk did us a favor and beat Navarrete because I prefer this fight here. I prefer this rematch when Navarrete and Valdez.
In the weight class they belong in.
In a weight class where they belong in. Two fun fighters where when you match them together, I think you're going to have more fireworks. And also there's even more riding on the line in this fight. Way better, way more entertaining here than if you would have wound up with Navarrete, Shakur Stevenson, which would have been another one-sided, outboxing of a Shakur Stevenson opponent, because Shakur is that good and in a weight class where Shakur belongs in more than Navarrete. So I think that I like this card because it's not just fun matchups, and it's also the timing of the fights. Yeah. Turki Al-Ashik's making these fights, and the timing is great. So there's desperation. In the main event, there's not desperation. The main event is it's seeking for greatness, right? Trying to put yourself on that high pedestal. But then as you work your way down the line, there's top contender fights, but there's desperation, a little bit of desperation in all these fights. Where you like
stakes.
Yeah, there's a lot on the line here, man. It's like so you're not just getting a matchup that on paper is great. Like for example, you had Mayweather-Pacquiao back in the day. It was great on paper, but in reality, it wasn't the timing, right? These fights right here, you look on paper, you get excited. But then a closer analysis through the microscope, and you're like, these are also great matchups because the timing of these fights is great. Both sides of these fights are going to be hungry, willing to go for it, and that's why this card is going to be entertaining, in my opinion.
And Paul, you know why that's happening? And I think these boxing matchups are generally irrationally made. They don't make sense. These fights make sense. You look because you got Turki Al-Ashik looking at fights like, yeah, I think Andy Ruiz and Jarrell Miller fighting makes sense. Yeah, it does. Sure, it does. I think Oscar Valdez fighting, is another fight that actually makes sense. It's coming back around. I want to go back to that one though because that first fight with Oscar Valdez and Navarrete, that was supposed to be this all Mexican historical clash, right? And then it wasn't. They have another chance at that now. They have another chance to make it all-time great because that first one really wasn't.
More pressure on them this time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
the emotions can spill into the ring.
Speaking to fights making sense and when they're happening, this fight makes a lot more sense even than the first one. The first one we were listen. They brought all the Mexican legends to the fight. Like, oh, this is gonna be that great fight, and it wasn't. And it was done. Navarrete was just better. Now they're going to fight, and they have another crack at making it a great historic fight. And I think that doesn't happen in boxing. You don't really get multiple chances.
And that's the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
because now these two guys, you know,
that's another loser leaves town. Because if they show up and it's another not good fight,
they both leave town.
They're really out.
They could both be out here, but you know what always entertains? We do. That's why you want to join us. That's right. This Saturday, post-fight, we'll be here in studio. Get the ProBox TV app. Join us on YouTube. We'll join you Saturday night. Enjoy the fights.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, August 21st. Former Unified World Champion Swift Jarrett Hurd takes on former Unified World Champion Jason Banana Rosario. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.